Hi everyone, welcome to our dyslexia webinar. I can see we've got quite a few people in already. Welcome. We'll just give a couple more minutes as we're expecting quite a lot of participants today, and then we'll make a start. Hopefully everyone can hear me now. So I'll introduce everybody in a moment, but everybody else is muted for now, just so we don't get any feedback. So I will go around and introduce everyone, and then we'll each have a little chat to you before we have some questions at the end. So, oh, I just saw there's someone from Port Lincoln. I used to be in Port Lincoln 2 years ago. Okay, might give it one more minute and then we'll make a start. Okay, we'll make a start. Welcome everybody to our Dyslexia Diagnosis to Support webinar. My name's Sarah and I'm the Children and Youth Services Librarian here at Vision Australia Library. So we've had so many people register. We're kind of blown away by the amount of people that have shown an interest in our webinar. So it's just really shown us how much people need information and support, whether it be for your kids at school, your own children, or maybe your library clients. So we hope today that we can give you some tips and help to achieve the best outcomes possible for your kids. So I'm joined today by Sarah Assome, who is a dyslexia specialist and currently works at Bentley West Primary School as well as wearing many hats across many dyslexia organisations. She's just flown back from the UK and a dyslexia summit last night, so she's doing amazing to be here. And we've also got Rebecca Clark, who is representing from Quantum. So Quantum do reading, learning and vision, and she has a number of assistive technologies that dyslexia people can use, which she'll be demonstrating for us shortly. So we'll invite Sarah to start in a minute, but just a couple of housekeeping things. We have had a number of questions sent in already, which is awesome. And please continue to send questions through. You can use the little chat icon at the bottom that I see a few of you have already used, so feel free to type your questions in there. We do anticipate that we won't be able to get through them all. We've allowed for 15 minutes at the end, but if we don't get through all the questions, we will do a little question and answer document, which we'll forward to all of our participants. So don't stress if we don't get to your question, we'll do the best we can. Also, we do expect the webinar to reach capacity, so please bear with us. We've got Catalin working behind the scenes, doing amazing work, making sure everything keeps online and keeps going. And we'll have people continue to join throughout the session, which is great. If you do have issues with your computer, we unfortunately can't troubleshoot everybody's different issues because we just won't have the time. But don't worry if you do miss anything, or if you do join us a little bit later, we will be recording. We are recording the whole session, and that will be put onto our YouTube channel shortly with the transcript as well. So you're welcome to catch up with it later and also share that with your colleagues or friends. So I'll introduce Sarah now, and she's going to be speaking about the early signs of dyslexia, also early intervention and assistance. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Just really to get straight to the point, I guess. Lots of people say, and they wait for their diagnosis, and that was some of the questions that we've got. But really, waiting till 8 is too late. It's not obviously too late and you wouldn't give up ever on a student, but we really want to get in early. So I just wanted to have a quick chat about the early signs to look for those parents at the beginning of the journey. So when you've got a really young preschooler, there's things that give you an indication that dyslexia might be present. You can't get a diagnosis, obviously, when they're 4 years old, but you can identify dyslexia way before they are 7 or 8 years old. So you can look for things like difficulty with saying certain words. So they might say pischetti instead of spaghetti. They might have trouble with word retrieval. So instead of looking for the word beach, they might say, you know, that place we went to where there was sand and there was sea and I built a sandcastle, but not actually be able to find the word beach. They might struggle with rhyming. So those are the really preschool kind of identification difficulties. You then might get to school and they'll struggle to pick up in sounds. They'll struggle to pick up sounds, put those sounds together and read. So you'll have those kids who may know some of the sounds and they'll go k, at. They might say dog or run and some random word because they actually can't put those building blocks together. So we really need to be identifying it at the start of their school journey as early as we can so that then we can intervene as early as we can. And the intervention that students with dyslexia require is evidence-based alphabetical principle instruction. So they need instruction on the phonemes, on the sounds of the language. They need to be taught how to build those sounds. They need phonemic awareness, which is the ability to isolate, segment, manipulate sounds. So the ability to say cat, let's take away the k, at. Let's say, what words rhymes with cat? Mat. The ability to be able to change the sound. So say cot, change it to an ah, make it say cat. So the ability to manipulate sounds, that's the early phonemic awareness skills that they need. So those are the things we should be looking for to identify. Certainly in Victoria, and that's where I'm obviously from, diagnosis is required for secondary school. So I will just make that clear, that come they get to grade 6, they need a diagnosis beyond grade 6. So if you're a parent or a teacher in grade 4 or 5, you're going to be paying for a diagnosis again come grade 6 because VCAA won't accept one in the younger years. So we would need that again. And it differs state by state. So, I mean, that's obviously Victorian based where I am. But we really need to be looking for those early signs, intervening as early as possible because we want to avoid those self-esteem issues. So, I mean, children with dyslexia, there's a lot of research behind dyslexia and anxiety and mental health. And we really want to avoid that. So, you know, getting in early, getting in with the technology from about grade 2, but really identifying it as soon as we can with the right decodable readers, the right intervention. And they often need, particularly if they've got more difficulties, they would need some one-on-one support from the right person who has additional training and additional skills.
Sorry, just muted again. Thank you for that, Sarah. And now in regards to intervention and assistance, what would be the first steps for somebody that does suspect or knows that they have dyslexia?
Yeah. So obviously the first step is to speak to the school because clearly not every school has a learning support specialist. It depends on the state you're in. So certainly New South Wales have their learning support teachers. Victoria, we don't all have that in our school, sadly, but schools in Victoria do have a speech therapist attached to the school and a psychologist. In Victoria, we're lucky to have that. So speak to the school and the teacher first of all. Many teachers, and it's not their fault, teachers do a wonderful job, but many teachers aren't able to identify or identify dyslexia because they might not necessarily have had the training or the skills to do so. So they may need to seek further clarification from other people within their school. So the first thing you would do is you might be able to find a speech therapist who will do a profile, a screening for you to identify it. You may also be able to get if you want to, a psychologist is more costly, but what you really need to do is identify those gaps to be able to intervene and fill in those gaps rather than actually the diagnosis obviously helps many children as well down the track, particularly the older students, to stop themselves feeling stupid and dumb and going, well, there's a reason for why I can't do this and I'm actually really smart. It's just my brain works a bit differently. And it's getting that self-awareness in there as well. So that's really, really important. There isn't funding attached to dyslexia. However, there is funding within the school system that goes into a pot that schools do have to, it's under the Disability Discrimination Act, and that dyslexia is mentioned in that Discrimination Act, and schools do have to cater for these students. So it's really important to get straight to your teacher first, and if they don't know, then you may need to seek some external support as well. There are various organisations around that can help you with that. There is the Australian Dyslexia Association, there is Spelled, there is Code Red, the new non-for-profit that will also give you some guidance. So there are various organisations that can point you in the right direction to find a specialist tutor or specialist person that can screen and identify the dyslexia.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think you've just answered one of the questions that came up about funding for the education department. And someone's asked, why is there a need to have another diagnosis done before high school?
Unfortunately, that's what VCAA at the moment. In order for accommodations for VCE, they would require a diagnosis beyond grade 6. We're still in this model in Australia. I see that question was from the UK. We're still in this model in Australia at the moment where they require a cognitive report, even though we know that it's not linked to IQ. So we know that these kids are smart kids. So unfortunately, we're still in that model at the moment where that's where state by state, but in Victoria, that's what they require. Whereas some other states are accepting different kinds of assessments from speech therapists or specialist teachers. But unfortunately, Victoria, that's at this stage, VCAA will only accept a psychologist report beyond grade 6. It's a bit crazy because it doesn't go away. It's not something that goes away and can be cured. It's cognitive. It's there from before you were born, and it stays with you. So it's not something that's going to go away, and I don't really sending for a second assessment personally, but that's where we're at.
That's interesting. And in talking to you before, you mentioned there are a lot of myths surrounding dyslexia. Maybe you could take us through a couple of those. Yeah,
certainly. So one of the biggest ones is that we automatically think that it's a visual difficulty, or dyslexia is a cognitive difficulty. So it's cognitive, it's genetic. So it is likely, if you are a parent with dyslexia, you are likely to have a student with dyslexia, a daughter or son with dyslexia. If you are both parents, you're pretty surely going to have a child with dyslexia. Lots of people think that we can fix it with coloured overlays or coloured lenses, and again the Royal Australian New Zealand ophthalmologists have released a statement and a paper quite recently saying that there is no scientific evidence to support that. Although people may have anecdotal evidence, there's no scientific evidence to support that will make a difference. Because it's cognitive, we need to teach them to read cognitively. Some of the other myths, I guess, are things like the girls and boys. We had a little chat before we started the webinar, and most of the research shows that it's quite even with girls and boys, but again, girls can often go easily under the radar and not necessarily have behaviours that stand out, or they can find very clever coping mechanisms, even from prep, from the first year of school, to find ways around things. There is a link between dyslexia and ADHD. So lots of students do have ADHD and dyslexia. So there is a common link there. It's about 40%, depending on the research paper you read. So yes, there is some evidence with that one. And again, the other one is that, we can't identify it till they're later down the track, and that it's linked to IQ, and that's definitely not true. We've only at the summit last week with some of the smartest people in the world, scientists and people who work, Richard Branson, Jamie Oliver, people who are super smart, intelligent people, but still struggle to read and write at all. So that was really, really interesting.
I read this morning, and it was relevant because the royals are in town, that apparently Prince Harry is dyslexic as well.
Yes, and the Prince of Sweden was actually at the summit.
Really?
As well, and his wife Sophia, they were there. Yeah.
That's amazing. And you mentioned being at the summit that you heard a talk from Microsoft about a technology that all students in Australia have free access to. Maybe you could just let us know about that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. So what Microsoft have done is they've created something called their learning tools. And they've got lots of little clips on YouTube and on their webinars and on their Facebook pages. And that is actually, every child has a log on to that across the country. So not just Victoria based, across the country. And it's on their learning tools, they have something called Assistive Reader. And what the Assistive Reader does is it will turn the document into a document that will read to them. You can break the words into syllables. You can identify the nouns, the verbs, all the parts of speech, which is wonderful. You can also take a photo of a page or a worksheet or a textbook and turn that into a document that will also read to them. So it's really, really valuable tool. And I guess for parents and teachers, it means that we don't then have to buy additional apps and be out searching. We can use this as an additional tool within the classroom. And they're not going to stand out as looking different either, because everyone can use it. So it's part of OneNote, it's part of Microsoft Office Online, and all children in Australian schools have a log on, whether they are at a government school, an independent school, or a Catholic school. So it's brilliant. It's really, really, really good.
That's awesome. And just there's a quick question come up. Are you aware if there's a Mac version of an Assistive Reader?
Yeah, although it's Microsoft, it works on Mac. So that's something I should have made clear. Sorry. Yeah, it works on all devices. It works on Mac as well. They made that quite clear and they're adding to it all the time. They're working at the moment with Made by Dyslexia to start looking at whether they can do something to identify students and have some things to identify as well. So that's really useful.
Great. And are the login details provided by the school?
You need to go to the school and ask for them, but yes, you can, and everybody can use those. So that's really worth doing. I guess the one little other myth I might like to put in there, or misconception, is people often ask if people can struggle with maths when they've got dyslexia. Yes, they most definitely can. So they often have difficulties with things like executive functioning and organising themselves. They have difficulties with their memory, their working memory, remembering of days of the week, months of the year, times tables, all those kind of memory-related functions. And so that can obviously impact hugely in the maths curriculum as well, whether they've got dyscalculia or not, but even if they've just got dyslexia. So I guess that's something that needs to be kept in the forefront as well.
And is there a term for the maths? Is it dyscalculia?
Dyscalculia, yes. Yeah.
So they often will go hand in hand?
Not always. So you can have students who've got dyslexia and can be a high flyer in maths, or you can have, my daughter has both. My son doesn't. He just has dyslexia. So it can go hand in hand.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All that information is so good, and there's so many questions coming in. So we'll do what we can at the end to get through a few. If not, we will definitely send you some answers, but it's great. Keep the questions coming. So I'll just want to talk for a few minutes about the Vision Australia Library and how we can support your students or your children that have dyslexia. So some of you may have heard about the webinar because you already are Vision Australia Library members, which is great. So I'll just give a little overview for anybody that's new to our service. And for those people that have been using it for a long time, I've just a few pointers about how to get the most out of it. So just briefly, Vision Australia Library, we're a public library. We're a national public library. And even though we're based here in Kooyong in Melbourne, we have clients all over Australia. So everybody that lives in Australia and has dyslexia is eligible to join our library service. A lot of people think of Vision Australia and they think of blindness and low vision, which of course we do cater for, but because dyslexia is a print disability, we also can provide a service, which is really awesome. We can open our library up to so many more people. I was just saying to Sarah that about 80% of the children that join our library currently actually have dyslexia rather than a vision impairment. So we're a completely free service, being a public library, which is great, and we're the biggest audiobook library in Australia. So it's a great service to get for your children. In terms of how we can help, well, our children and youth area, we contains thousands of audiobook titles, and we really work hard to keep it up to date and interesting. It's always a challenge, and we're always adding new titles, but this year alone we're adding 2,500 new titles specifically for our children and young adult, because we recognise that it's an area where people need more titles. We need to keep our kids engaged and get them reading things that they want to read or listening to things they want to listen to, otherwise they're not going to engage. And we also need to meet curriculum requirements. So in our library, you will find, all the books you need for school in regards to like English texts and things like that. And we hope you'll also find lots of interesting things for you to read, from, early readers to right up to teen novels. And then we can also, take you through to adulthood. We have a huge adult collection as well. And we have an app, which I wanted to just briefly show you. So our app, as I said, we're a free library service, and our app is also free. It's a free download either for Apple or Android. So you can just go to your app store and search for Vision Australia Connect. I can't show it to you very well, but it's a little yellow icon, like the colour of our banner. And you can put it onto your smartphone or your tablet. You can actually have it on multiple devices at one time. So that's great if you're wanting to use it at school, but you also want to listen at home. You can put it on the school iPad and have it at home, which is really good. Now I'll just show you mine. It's designed for people with low vision and dyslexia, so it's very simple to use. It's not wordy. The icons are very large. And I knew we'd have some kind of technical difficulty, and it's not loading my books at the minute. But I'll just explain while it does that. So everything you need to do in the library happens in the app. It's kind of a one-stop shop. You can search for your books, you can add them or loan them, you can listen to them, and then you can return them. So you don't ever have to use anything other than the app if you don't want to. So I've got my bookshelf here. So that's my loaned books. At the moment, I've got some Weirdo and some Children of Blood and Bone. So they're books that I've loaned. For 2 months at a time, you can loan the books. And because they're digital files, if you want to reloan them every 2 months for the rest of your life, you can. And there's no overdue fees, nothing like that. If you forget to return your book after 2 months, which I always forget to return mine, they just drop off the player. So that's super convenient. No mean librarian's going to come for you, which is good. When you listen to your books, it's just loading at the minute, and then I'll just show you what the interface looks like when you're listening. It's got very big icons, as I said, and good colour contrast, which is really helpful. So this is it here. As you can see, the icons are very large. You can navigate through chapters, and you can break it down, even navigate through sentences and pages, etc., which is really good if you're studying a book for school. You can go back and forth as you need to. A couple of other really good features: you can bookmark this little icon here. So if you need to save important points, you can come back to those. And this sleep timer, which you can put on, and then it turns your app off either 15, 30, 45, or 60 minutes afterwards, so you can listen as you're going to sleep, but you don't want it to play all night. Whenever you stop and start your book, it'll hold your place, which is really good, and you can have up to 5 books per day. So even the most avid readers probably can't get through that many. You can either download or stream. So at the moment, these are online, which means I need to be connected to the Wi-Fi, but we know that a lot of people want to listen offline, like on the way to school or something like that. So you can download them before you leave home, which is really convenient. So that's our app. As I said, it's free. You just need to be a member of the library. So to join the library, it's very simple. You can go to our website, which is visionaustralia.org, but we'll send you all this information as well. And you have to fill out an online membership form. It would just ask for your basic details. It is important that it's put in the name of the person that's eligible. So unfortunately, parents can't join, teachers and schools also can't join. That's just our rules govern that we can only offer a service to people with a print disability. But you can join up as many children as you have, and with schools, as long as you have parental permission, you're welcome to join on behalf of the child. And it will ask for a referee, and a question I get very often is, who can be a referee? So this is anybody that is an educational or medical professional that could confirm the child's diagnosis. So this might be, I think we're speaking to a lot of educators today. This could be you if you have a child in your classroom, or that you provide special support to. It could also be a psychologist, or even a librarian or a teacher librarian. You can put your details in there and they can join the library. So that's kind of an overview of the library. So how can you help us improve our services? Well, our collection, it relies on book suggestions largely. We do keep up to date with what's around, but because audiobooks cost a lot of money to either purchase or produce, we want to make sure we're putting into our library what your kids want to read. Something that a lot of people don't realise is that you can recommend or suggest books, and it's really important that you do. Then we can make sure we're having a really relevant collection. So that's something I would definitely encourage you to do. And I also wanted to speak briefly about our school support procedure. So we have a department called Student Support, which is for any documents that you might need to be put into an audio format that aren't already for an educational purpose. So this can be primary, secondary, or going into university. And it could be a textbook, it could be something as simple as some class handouts, or even a test paper or something like that. And you need them in audio format. I speak to a lot of parents that spend a lot of time of an evening dictating books out for their kids, which is awesome. But I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do that anymore. You can reclaim your evenings. So at no charge to families, we can have them produced into audio. We do need a print copy of the book, and then we can produce that for you. So that's definitely something to bear in mind, particularly with textbooks. We don't carry a lot of textbooks in the library itself for a couple of reasons. One, they date really quickly, and 2, they are quite niche. We don't have a lot of people asking for the same textbook, so we do that on a needs basis. But as soon as you know the books that your child will need for even planning for next year or planning for next term, you can let us know, and we can ensure that it will be ready in audio when they need it. So that's really good. And just a couple of hints that I have for the app. I was recently speaking to a young lady who has dyslexia, and she mentioned that when she started listening to audiobooks, she was really bored by them. And I don't know, that might be a case for some of your kids. I personally don't like audiobooks. I do find them a little bit dull, but she suggested that you can speed them up. So she started off just speeding it up a little bit, just to like 1.5. So she would get through the book quicker, and it moved at a pace that was quicker, because for an average person to read a page is quicker than somebody speaking it out carefully, enunciating everything. And then she actually moved up to the point where she could listen to 2.5 speed, which sounds like chipmunks, but she trained herself to listen at that speed. And the benefit of that was, one, it kept her engaged, and two, if she had a textbook, a book that she needed to consider for English, perhaps like about a 10-hour book, she could get through that in 3 or 4 hours, which meant that she could listen to it multiple times and she could really hone in on different aspects, and her English scores showed that that was really beneficial. So that's, I thought that was really good advice and something I wanted to pass on. So you can just increase like 10%, and you can do that in the settings in the app. So just try a little bit at a time. And then if people want to continue training themselves up to the point where they can listen at a really fast rate, that's really good. And the other thing, there was a question that came through during the week, and somebody asked, how can we make how could a child be made to feel comfortable in the classroom setting using audiobooks? Because they didn't want to draw attention to the fact that it was a bit different to what the other kids were doing. And my recommendation in that is just to make audiobooks a really normal thing. And there's so many school libraries that do have an audiobook collection, and that's definitely something that's worth having. And even within the classroom, introducing audiobooks, if you're considering an English novel, why not listen to passages in an audiobook format, and encourage people to bring in, if they do have a Audible or a different audiobook device, definitely to use that. And also in the library, there's a lot of school libraries that also have an audiobook listening area, which is really good. So that, I think, would be my biggest recommendation for just making it really normal and a really fun way to enjoy books. You don't have to listen to audiobooks just because you have dyslexia. It's really nice and also for the family, maybe getting audiobooks when you go on a trip. And making it a shared experience. That way nobody feels like they're being singled out or it's unusual. It's just a different way to enjoy things. And, the books are done so well these days, like the Harry Potter books, for example, are done by Stephen Fry. And I think if you haven't listened to Stephen Fry read Harry Potter, you probably haven't had the full experience. So there's so much joy that everybody can get out of them. And one last tip, and I'll stop talking at you. Something I've discovered recently with my children is podcasts. So while it's not technically Vision Australia Library, podcasts are a great way to get information for our kids in an accessible format for them. And the great thing about podcasts is they're often quite short. We've been listening to one recently that's about 15 minutes an episode. So they're nice little, nuggets of information. And there's factual ones about history and, science and things like that, or there's serial kind of style ones that have mystery stories and adventure stories and things like that. So that's something I found really good to engage my own children. And I thought, and when I do speak to clients now, I say, well, try podcasts. They're free, and you can, there's heaps on there. So you can just search on your iTunes account or on your Android device. So that's all my tips for
Sarah, can I just ask you a question? One of the questions that keeps coming up lots of times by the looks of it is this waiting for a formal diagnosis. Do you need a formal diagnosis in order to get the Vision Australia books, or can a teacher have identified it, a specialist educator at school?
I do get that question a lot.
It's coming up a lot on the feed.
Yeah, I've been reading. You need, as we have the referee is a person that can confirm. So we're happy to take that. That's what we require by law. We need that referee, and that's just in case we ever get audited and someone says, oh, why are you giving the service to people that don't need it? We can verify that they do, but we know people are often waiting for a formal diagnosis, so don't wait.
Yes,
come to us.
Right.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you. And I see there's heaps more questions have come up, and I'll have a look through in a minute and hopefully we can answer a few more soon. But right now I'm going to hand over to Rebecca. So Rebecca works for Quantum, and she's going to talk to us all about some assistive technologies and demonstrate some for us. Thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So as Sarah said, I'm Rebecca Clark, and I've been working here at Quantum, helping people with assistive technology, mostly in the vision area, but also in the dyslexia and learning difficulty area. So I've got a bit of a demonstration, a few slides to do. So I'll just try and share my screen here for a moment. Okay, so I just wanted to share with you today all about Quantum and how we can help, and some of the assistive technology that's available for people with dyslexia. So for those of you who haven't come across Quantum before, we're an Australian organisation and company that we've been providing assistive technology for over 30 years. We're now actually merged with Vision Australia, but we're retaining our brand and sort of working mostly independently at the moment. So we are national. We've got showrooms in Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne, but we've also got representatives in different regional areas, and also we can help people interstate and also actually in New Zealand. So we can demonstrate the assistive technology that we have, whether that's in one of our showrooms. We can come to your home, school and people's workplaces. For people working in the sector, we can also provide professional development sessions. We are an NDIS provider for those people that's relevant for, and we can also help provide things through job access and might not be relevant in this case, but Department of Veterans Affairs and My Aged Care. As well as providing the actual technology, we are able to provide some training with it. And we also have a software support line in our own service department. So we source technology from a range of different suppliers. So we try and get the most innovative but also reliable technology that's proven from different things. So what's the kind of technology that might help people with dyslexia? So a lot of the technology we have in some form turns text into speech, as we've heard, like, audiobooks and other options. Audio options can certainly help. So we've got both software and hardware options. One of the software options that we've got is the read and write software, which some of you may well be familiar with. We can provide that to organisations and companies. For education, the Suppliers Text Help do have their own office. So I will demonstrate it in a moment, but the idea of read and write is it's a floating toolbar that can be used across all sorts of applications like Word, on the internet, with PDFs, and it can be installed on multiple platforms, so either Windows, Apple, Android, or there's a Chrome extension as well. So it's got a variety of different tools, and you can customize it to the tools that you particularly want. So there's reading tools, so you can have text read aloud. You can scan and read documents. You can also put screen masking on, so you've just got to highlight to cut out any sort of extra print, so you can just focus on the area that you're reading if that's something that's helpful. You can also turn text into an MP3, and it's got a specific PDF reader. There's also writing tools such as text prediction. You can check for homophones, so like where and where, write and write, and check you've got the right ones. You can use vocabulary lists, and it's got dictionaries and also a bit of speech to text, so you can dictate. That's using the inbuilt Windows voice recognition. And there's also some study tools like highlighting and getting facts together for if you're trying to do projects and things like that. So I'll just switch over and see if I can show you the software. So just a moment, I'll just try that again. So if I've got my screen here. So for example, with the reading tools, hopefully you can see my screen. And if I click in the document, this is just one of our newsletters, and hit on the play button here, it should start reading. And let's try again.
Distinguished biochemist Jonathan Levine balances a full-time scientific career with his own academic research with help every day from read and write. Based in Baltimore, Maryland, Jonathan works as a genomics account manager at Life Science.
So there you've got, it will highlight as it reads. So you've got what they call the bimodal output. So you've got the visual and the audio, which has been shown in various things to help some people comprehend and get the reading and focus on the words can track as you're reading, and help with the understanding. And I mean, we've got everyone from students using this up to, I was actually training someone in a workplace the other day, so it's for everyone. And because it's a toolbar, it's just pretty discreet. And it's using the other programs that you might be using. With things like the text prediction, I'll just check you can see that here. Can you see if I click on that one, you get, if you're writing, you get a toolbar that's coming, a box that's coming up, and you can predict what you might want to say. So if I started writing in here, you can then press, say, F2 to get the put in, and so on. So, so that's to help with writing. You can customize it to have whatever tools you want, change the speed, change the colors that you're highlighting, all that sort of thing. So that's one of the options. I'll just go back to my PowerPoint for a moment. There we go. So one of the other things that we do, and I haven't got that to demonstrate just with the time today, is the Dragon Naturallyspeaking voice recognition software. So this will, again, as you may have heard, that this allows you to talk to your computer and it will type for you. So, I mean, more and more we're finding voice recognition being fairly mainstream with things like Siri, and it's got more and more accurate in recent years. We've had examples of schools using this. There was a school called Candlebark we featured in one of our newsletters recently that have been using it for many students, and they found, you know, it can, for those people that are finding difficulty writing, they may be verbally fluent, so actually being able to express themselves verbally and create, you know, their assignments or emails and things that way, can help with efficiency and get them motivated to actually write. And they had said that some of their reluctant writers had been more motivated to start writing, and even some of the teachers had started using it. You do have to train it, and they had to do things like moderate the volume with students, because I guess in a classroom situation there were some adjustments there, but overall it had been really positive. So that's another thing that you can try. And finally, last but certainly not least, we've also got hardware options. So it's all very well being able to read things on the computer, but what about, you know, we take for granted reading every day, whether it's a book, magazine, your textbooks, even going shopping, reading a menu, all that sort of thing. What are you going to do about reading those? Well, to date, I mean, we've had for documents and things like this Clear Reader scanner, which will scan and read aloud. But obviously that's not terribly portable. It's great for books and things like that. But we've now got the wearable Orcam My Reader device, which is a wearable and intuitive device which you can use gestures like pointing to get to read. So I will just give you a bit of a demonstration of that. So if I just stop sharing that for a moment. So hopefully you can see, I've just got I'll just wake it up. It's about the size of a lipstick. It's got a camera on one end and a speaker on the other. It can attaches to any glasses frame. They just act as the mount. So that's a little magnetic mount. And what I can do is I can get any printed text. It can be on any surface. So I can just point with my finger upright to an area and takes a picture, and then hopefully you can
discover the latest innovative features available in Orcam My Eye 2. This presentation by Mr. Leon Paul from Orcam Israel will introduce you to the enhanced Orcam My Eye and
I can just stop it by putting out my hand, or there's also a touch bar on the side, so you can pick up anything, packets in the supermarket, any printed text, and it will read. We do actually have Leon from Orcam coming out in November. We've got a couple of events, one in Perth on Monday the 12th of November and one on the 14th here in Sydney. So if you want more details on that, by all means, contact us. So yeah, that's mostly all I've got to say. I'll just put up our phone number, but I think Sarah was going to send that around, send details around later as well. So just share that. So it's I should also say the OrCam it's quite discreet, but it's also hands-free, and you don't actually have to have it connected to the internet to work. It's only for updates. So yeah, we can be contacted on 1300 883 853, and our website's www.quantumrlv.com.au if anyone wants any more information. So thank you for listening, and I'll hand back over to Sarah.
Thank you, Rebecca. While I've got you, there was just one question that came through about the Dragon Naturallyspeaking. And
Yes.
if a student has a speech difficulty as well, is a program like Dragon still going to be relevant for them, or do you have any tips for using it?
Using it with like a headset and microphone is best. You can train it because it's specific to your voice. It might involve a bit more training. It would, yeah. You'd have to see how you go. I think that while they don't actually have a trial of it, well, I could certainly go out and show people, or I think they have like a 30-day money-back guarantee. So I think if it really doesn't work, I guess it would depend on the level of the speech impairment. So, yeah.
Thank you. And there was also a question, can these items be purchased using NDIS?
I was just
they
going to
certainly
you go first,
can.
Rebecca.
Yes, they can. They come under the assistive technology budget. Normally, anything over a certain amount, people have had to have an assistive technology report, and that normally needs to be signed off on by a AT specialist or an OT. And I know Vision Australia have helped with that for people with vision impairment, but there's independent OTs and things that do.
Unfortunately, dyslexia comes under the educational category, though, so I think it's very hard to get.
It can be, yeah. We have had people get
a couple. I know of a few.
Yeah. So yeah, the NDIS is a bit of a tricky one for dyslexia. If people have had other issues as well, it's probably been
exactly right. It seems to have comorbid, because people have been successful, have got something comorbid that has been able to get it. Exactly right.
Yeah. The software, by the way, I should say, Dragon doesn't actually have a trial, but we can come out and demonstrate it. Read and Write, you can definitely trial for 30 days, and I believe Text Help, if they've still got it, they did have like a way that teachers could easily get access and have used to it to try it out. So for login, so I can pass those details on for the general Text Help one. So.
Great, thank you. There's a question here, Sarah, I thought might be a good one for you. They just asked, do you have to be diagnosed?
Again, it depends what you're looking for. I mean, a question earlier on came up about NAPLAN. Someone sent in a question about NAPLAN. We have students getting NAPLAN accommodations who have not had a formal diagnosis. But what they do have to have is those accommodations in place every day as normal classroom practice, regular classroom practice. So if they've got a scribe already in class, they can have a scribe for NAPLAN. But if it's something out of the norm that you're asking for that they haven't had before, well, it wouldn't work anyway. You've got to be trained up to be a scribe. It won't work. And again, somebody else was asking before about New South Wales. Each state is different. So you will need to go to your state SPELDS or the ADA or one of those organisations to find out how it works in your state, because each state is different. You don't need a formal diagnosis to get NAPLAN accommodations, no. At the moment, as I said, for VCE, yes, you do need a formal diagnosis, but I would speak to your school and ask when they want that. Some schools are more than happy to wait till further down the track and wait till like year 10 and things, whereas some schools might want it earlier rather than later. It all depends on, I guess, the school they're coming from in primary too. So I write a lot of the profiles for our year 6 going into year 7, so that those year 7 teachers really don't need any more information at that stage, because we get a lot from us, but it depends on the school they're going to. I'd have that conversation with the school and find out what they need. But what the key to that is getting those accommodations in place. So it's regular practice. It's what they're already doing. So they're already using a scribe or they're already using assistive technology. That's much easier than to get over the hurdles for these definitely VCAA and NESA, any of them. You need to have it already in place.
Great, thank you for that. There's a few library questions that I'll just quickly address. So the school can't borrow books for the students, unfortunately. We're governed by rules that only allow us to provide a service to people with a print disability. Someone did ask, how can teachers see what we have then? You can browse our catalogue as a guest. So if you go online, and we'll provide all these links later to visionaustralia.org, the library, you can have a browse and have a look. And we also do have a teacher demonstration login that you can use, which just allows you to kind of to download the app, log in and have a little play around with it. It doesn't replace the app, but it is a good way for you to demonstrate to students and also to parents if it is, to see if it's going to be something that will suit the students. And somebody asked, do you have handouts? We definitely do. If you would like us to send you out some physical brochures, we also have some bookmarks coming soon that you're welcome to put into the library or in the classroom. So if anybody would like any kind of collateral, do let me know, and I'd be more than happy to send some out for you. All my details will be sent soon. Regarding high school textbooks, generally we don't keep many in the library for the reasons I gave before, that they do date very quickly. They're usually massive books, so it's a big thing to produce, and that's why we have our student support department. And as somebody did mention, there is a cost to that. Generally we try to keep it not a cost to the families. So we work with you and with also either the education department or your specific school to have it funded. Somebody mentioned their school was billed for it, and unfortunately someone does have to pay for it, but we want to avoid wherever possible that a family would have to wear that cost. So definitely, if you do need a textbook, get in contact and we'll work with you through all the paperwork and everything to make sure that you're not got a huge bill at the end or anything. We don't want that to happen. We want it to be accessible to everybody. Now, sorry, I'm just, how long does it take to produce a textbook? I can't say definitely. All I can say is the sooner you let us know, the better. We look at least a 6 week to 8 week turnaround. So it's very difficult if someone comes to us and says they need it next week. Unfortunately, we can't work that fast. But we just encourage plan ahead. So a lot of people, they're getting their high school lists soon of books. So let us know now. Like, it's never too early to let us know. And somebody also asked, can teachers recommend books? Absolutely. Anyone can, teachers, parents, or students. Generally, if a book suggestion is linked to a client, it moves through our system faster, so you're more likely to get it sooner. So if you have a student that is really wanting, I can't think of a book, a new book, then definitely shoot us in a recommendation. You can send that to my email or to the library email, but if you attach their name, then we can work it through the system faster. Audiobooks for and info about dyslexia for adults. Our audiobooks are completely accessible for adults as well. We have a huge adult collection. I didn't touch on that so much, as more talking about kids today, but absolutely we have I think about 40,000 audiobooks at the moment for adults, and always growing. So definitely, if you know adults that have dyslexia, get them to join up. Okay, I'm just having a little look through. Maybe another question back to you, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
There was a question, I think it was to do with the Dragon program, and it says, how does it differ from Browsealoud?
Oh, okay. I don't know whether that was about Read and Write or Browsealoud, because Read and Write and Browsealoud are produced by the same company.
Probably that was it, sorry.
No, that's right. Browsealoud is actually a tool that's purchased by the owners of a website. So it does some similar things to Read and Write, but it's actually on a specific website, or there's a way that if it's a library, they can have it on public computers for all websites. So that puts up a toolbar, and you can read aloud and you can simplify a page and things like that. It doesn't have any of the writing things on it. So, but whereas Read and Write is more for an individual or organization's computers and for using with different programs. So hopefully that, and it's got a whole lot more tools. So yeah. yeah,
Great,
similar
thank
idea.
you.
I did just spot one. Someone said, does Quantum or Vision Australia have access to assistive technologies that help read sheet music? Is that in terms of, we've got things that magnify and whatnot, but possibly not in terms of dyslexia, I don't, or some sort of, might need some more context on that question.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't.
I've got one here. I might just jump in and answer if that's okay. There's one about child in year 7 and scribing at home, and she's being set up for failure with VCE. What I would say is, I don't know the answer to this. Does she have a scribing class at school? That needs to be happening. Otherwise, she won't be able to get it through VCE if it's not happening every day in the classroom. It's going to make it very difficult. Also, if you're a parent, even if you're starting the journey with a 5-year-old, keep the history. So keep the IELTS individual learning plans, keep the documents, keep absolutely everything to build up a profile. So when you get to that pointy end of schooling, you've got all the documents that show that it's been in place for a long time, because that makes it far easier.
Thank you. And I just wanted to jump in. There was a question about the textbooks. Yes, once they're converted into audio, we can make them available in our library, so we wouldn't have to redo it twice. So that's really good. We don't generally anticipate, but once it is converted into audio, everybody can access it, which is really good if it's a common textbook, which is great. So the question about, back to the music, software for blind people to translate scores for musicians. I feel like that should be my area to answer, but I'm not 100% sure on that question. So I'm going to find out, and I'll send out some information. Did you have anything else to add to that, Rebecca?
No, I believe there is software. I can't off the top of my head think of the name of it. So there's something called Cakewalk and something else. But there are ways of composing music for people that are blind. So it's not something that we actually have, but yeah, I can help you try and find some information, to Sarah, if yeah,
that's a good question. Very
yeah.
There's been a few questions about people wanting to know more about dyslexia and teaching phonics and where to go. So I think I can probably jump in with those ones. There's a few of those. There was recently some webinars that were put out by the Victorian Department that were written by Pam Snow and Lorraine Hammond, which I can give Sarah the link to and can be sent out. They're on YouTube. They're for free. They are a good place to start. Another great place is the Inclusion Online courses, which are free if you're in a government school. So that's another great place. There's lots of additional trainings running across the country in Orton Gillingham, MSL stroke training. We host Ron Yoshimoto at our school regularly at Bentley West. So again, you can get on the list. We've got Mary Dahlgren from America talking today and Monday and Tuesday to external teachers. So there's lots of PD out there that you can access. One more question I might just jump into is, are the school required to do an individual learning plan if they don't receive funding for students? Again, there's no set thing. I know some schools saying, I'm not putting a learning plan in unless they're this far behind or that far behind. We actually have students on a learning plan who are not far behind at all. They're just not reaching their potential. So again, that's a school-based decision, but I would contact your local department and check that one. This question was from New South Wales, but New South Wales do have learning support teachers. They're less teachers. They're learning and support teachers, I know. I was up there recently. And you can push and say you want to know what the goals are as a parent if you're that, worried about their student and if they're behind.
Sarah, it's not a question there, but one I thought would be good to ask you. How important do you think it is? No, I'm not muted. No, I don't think I'm muted. Sorry. How important is it for kids with dyslexia to meet and know other kids with dyslexia and create a network?
I think that's vital. And again, one of the big things is changing perception in schools and making it okay to have dyslexia. So we just had the Light It Red events across the country, which Code Red initiated a few years ago now, but it's getting bigger every year. And just raising that awareness. So at the moment, there's the Get On Board campaign where schools and individuals can enter. It's to do with building a red paper plane. It's called Get On Board. Get On Board for Dyslexia. And the red signifies that these are the kids that have red pen put on their work, and it's 1 in 5. So it's on the 15th usually that we have these events. So it's really raising that awareness so they don't feel stigmatised and that they're stupid or dumb or that they're struggling, and they're not the only one. So that was, the dyslexia camp that runs in January, the MSL camp in Victoria, was a great one for that, because the kids would look around the room and say, oh, it's not just me. all of these people struggle with literacy, and it doesn't mean I'm stupid. I'm actually really smart, because some of the smartest people in the world are dyslexic. So it's raising that perception, and certainly, obviously, October is Dyslexia Awareness, but there's always things happening at Code Red and some of the other organisations that you can get on board and get awareness within your schools or with your own child.
Yeah, if we've got time, just seeing one, Sarah, that I might jump in on, is of how successful is Dragon now in a classroom or a workplace environment where others are talking. We have seen it used in workplaces. I know there's government departments that have people using it. If people have a headset and a microphone, then that can work pretty well. I think it might be adjustments in terms of you moderating the volume that you're using. But if anyone, I can see we did have an article in our latest education newsletter, and I mean, I can certainly see if anyone wants more information, if there's the people involved in the school there would want to make direct contact, they might be open to that. I can find that out, because they definitely had success with it. There's some adjustments that needed to be made, but it is possible. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And I should have mentioned before we started that the timing for this webinar was to coincide with Dyslexia Awareness. We're a few days out, but it's very important to raise awareness for it. And I recently heard a statistic that 30% of all entrepreneurs are dyslexic.
Yeah, the Made by Dyslexia Summit had some entrepreneurs talking, and they were actually talking about changing. Most of the evening was talking about how changing human resources and how they should actually be looking at their cognitive psychometric testing that they do, and that it's not actually a good way of looking at employees coming in. And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
There's a couple of questions that's come in about decodable readers. Which books series should we use? There's a range out there. Obviously, the Australian ones are the Little Learners Love Literacy and the Pocket Rockets. And then you also have Decodable Readers Australia. They're the Australian produced ones, but you've also got the books by Phonic Books, which are great, the Dandelion series. And then for the older kids, you've got the Moonbelt and the Rip Rap series, which are fully decodable and great for grade year 5, 6, 7, much older kids. So they look like chapter books. The kids will read them in class as a chapter book. They don't feel different, which is great. I might just answer the second one as well. But someone just emailed and asked about the Dyslexia Font. Again, a bit like the coloured overlays and lenses, there is no research to show that Dyslexia Font makes a difference. What does show is that it's the spacing and the sizing. So having the spacing between the letters, and you can have Arial with that same spacing and it would have the same effect. But it's to do with the spacing and the sizing, which is why on the Microsoft app you can change the spacing and the sizing.
Thank you very much. I've just been given the 2-minute warning signal. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for everybody being involved and for all your questions. I'm not sure we got through all of them, but we'll go through them and we can do a little question and answer sheet to send through, because we don't expect you to remember everything. I know I certainly wouldn't. And we will be making a link for this webinar available to you all. So feel free to rewatch it as you need, and share it with all of your colleagues and friends. And also, if you have any questions, all of our contact details will be sent. So if you have any questions about Vision Australia Library, feel free to get in contact. And also Sarah, you can speak to about any other questions about dyslexia, and Rebecca about quantum. So thank you so much for joining in today, everyone. And thank you, Sarah and Rebecca, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for organising. Yes, great.
Right.
Thanks for attending, people.
Everybody enjoy their afternoon.
Bye.